Well, good evening, and welcome to the Balm and Gilead's Talk That Talk. Talk That Talk, Prostate Cancer and Black Men. And we're calling this Faith in Action. Yes, indeed. At the Balm and Gilead, everything is about faith in action, addressing prostate cancer in Black communities. I am so happy that you have joined us this evening for this very important conversation. You know, I've shared with you on the podcast at the Balm and Gilead, we are focusing more of our work this year on Black men. So I am excited, happy, and honored. You know I'm joyful that you have joined us for this important discussion this evening. I want to thank Janssen Pharmaceuticals for sponsoring this very important discussion. And we have a wonderful panel for you this evening. I hope you have your paper and pencil ready to take notes. And if not, I'm sure you will be able to play this over and over and over again. But I hope you have some paper and pencil ready because we have a rich panel with rich discussions this morning and this evening. So make sure you are prepared to write, record, and you could always go back and play this information. I am always honored and happy to hand it off now. I'm not going to tarry long with you because we're going to jump right into this webinar. I'm happy to hand it off to a very dear friend of the Balm and Gilead, Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Brooks. And you know, he is no stranger here at the Balm and Gilead. Whenever we call, he comes. He is the senior pastor of Greater St. John Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. Reverend Dr. Brooks has been spearheading talks and advocating for prostate cancer in Black men for many, many, many years. It is always my honor and my privilege and my blessing to hand it off to a dear friend of the Balm and Gilead. Join me in welcoming the Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Brooks. Dr. Brooks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sill, for introducing me. It has been a pleasure to work with you along this road, this journey to health, to going from state to state, whether it's community, whether it's neighborhood, and one more thing, whether it's the country. You have one thing in common and one thing that you have always done to make sure faith in action is done and to make sure that whatever community you leave, they know about their health and they want to do better with their health. Before we start, Dr. Sill, I want to kick it back over to you because there is a video that's going to come together from Shannon Sharp.
Okay.
Phone ring, like, is this Mr. Sharp? I'm like, yeah, this is Dr. Such and Such. I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? Remember we told you we was gonna do a biopsy? You have prostate cancer. Man, my heart just sank. I mean, just like my heart just, what? I feel good. I mean, look, I was just in the gym. I was, everything is great. Like, yeah, but you have it. I said, so what does that mean? It means that you're gonna have to have surgery. Okay, what does that mean? Well, Mr. Sharp, we caught it in a very early stage, and there's a great chance that you're gonna be okay. But it's a good thing that you started doing this at a very young age, at a very early age, because a lot of men, they don't. They wait until they display symptoms. And by that time, I had no symptoms. I didn't go to the bathroom anymore. I didn't have blood in my urine or anything of that nature. Just a routine checkup. My dad died of cancer at the age of 39. There were 4 brothers. My dad had 4 brothers, and I think only one made it to be 50. So cancer is hereditary for me. I started getting screened for prostate cancer in my late 30s because of the history that was in my family. Health, family, happiness. I'm at my best when I'm feeling good, when I know my family's good. Obviously, my health is very important because my health allows me to keep them in a good space, keep them prosperous. You don't realize how strong you are. I said, he gave you this because he knew you could overcome this. He's not gonna put any more on you than you can bear. And that's what I would tell him. I put my arm around him and say, bro, you're gonna be all right. You don't realize how strong you are, but you're about to find out how strong you actually are. Have the conversation, us in our community, the Black community. Talk, don't be afraid to go see the doctors. If something's not right, get screened early. I think the biggest thing is that nobody thinks it can happen to them. A lot of times we have issues in our community that could be readily solved with the proper screening if we got screened early enough. Go get screened early. Get screened often. Don't be afraid if something is going wrong, if you're not feeling right, go get it checked out. That's what we should do.
Wow. This is, before we jump into the video and before we even discuss that video, I want to bring on our panelists and introduce our panelists who have been coming alongside me to make some impact during our time tonight. I want to first introduce Dr. Vincent Michael Bivins. For 18 years, Dr. Vincent Michael Bivins has been a dedicated member of the team of doctors at Urology Centers of Alabama. In addition to serving the patients of UCA, Dr. Bivins resides on the boards of the Jefferson County American Cancer Society, the YMCA, and the Urology Foundation. Dr. Bivins gives back to his community by providing free prostate screening for low socioeconomic areas. Dr. Bivins is also a retired member of the United States Air Force Reserves. In consideration of time spent, let's move towards our next panelist. Mr. A.J. Starling currently serves as the Secretary and Treasurer of the Tennessee AFL-CIO. He has dedicated his career to the service of others and actively engaged in community and political activities, including membership of the Workforce Investment Board. Mr. Starling has participated in campaigns across Tennessee. He's organized countless political fundraisers and rallies and has provided expert advice to candidates on labor issues. Dr. Bivins, Mr. Jefferson, let's welcome to this conversation. Before we begin, I want to say I am completely blown away by this candid testimony of Brother Sharp. As an avid sports watcher, I did not know. This is my first time even hearing it, and maybe I've missed it, but wow. Now watching sports in the morning, I have a greater appreciation for his zeal and for his awareness and his candid talk as he begins to talk. I had no idea. This definitely prostate cancer has affected him, and to see his triumph over it. I want to bring our panelists in for a second. We witnessed Mr. Shannon Sharp's perspective on how God helped him through this period of his life. Mr. Bivins and Mr. Starling, here's the question. How do you get through tough times as a Black man? Let me put it, a Black man in America. What role does family, community, and your faith play as how you seek care and how you seek care? And does being a Black man stop you from seeking care? What's out there? Let's talk.
You would like to start with me?
You can go, yes. Go ahead, Mr. Starling or Dr. Bivins. Either one of y'all can start.
Okay, AJ Starling. You know, that's the first time I saw the film as well. And I thought it was very emotional because some of the same things that Mr. Sharp went through, I had some of the same things. And I think that my faith is actually kept me in a place where I needed to be, along with my family support. And being an African-American father, grandfather, it's important that I should be around and to actually go through that and the emotional. It's an emotional roller coaster. Don't get me wrong, because I felt that I was, hey, I'm all He-Man, and guess what? Nothing can go wrong with me, and so I felt that I was in the right place, and to get the diagnosis of prostate cancer from my physician was kind of a shock, but I was able to lean on my faith, lean on my family, and particularly my wife, to make it through. It's a tough journey, and I guess I can talk a little more. I don't want to take up all the time.
So, it's interesting that there's just three common words I hear probably 80 to 90% of the time when I make that phone call. Anybody want to take a guess what those three words are?
Oh my God.
That's it right there. I hear that probably 80 to 90% of the time. It's interesting in the African American community. A lot of different dynamics are going on, which we could spend hours and hours talking about. But I always, I'll tell. So when I set it up, I typically will do a phone call first because I want the first impact. Because men usually get this overwhelming feeling of just doom and this feeling of, is my life over? And I reassure them. The first thing I tell them, you're going to be okay. You're going to live. I try to find some reference point, not just get into the cancer, but just put this thing into the perspective of life. If they're if they're a young man, I tell them, you're going to be here to see your grandkids graduate, and so that I can reassure them. The next thing I do is I talk about their cancer. The next thing I do is I talk about their family, because again, Black men are interesting because they like to keep things close to the hip, and they will show up. And real quick, I've seen brothers come in both with cancer, and neither one of them talk to each other, right? And so I want them to engage their family, bring their family into the conversation for that support. And so, and I know we're going to kind of get into this a little bit later, but just kind of looking at all of the different factors, fear and everything else that goes, trust, distrust, all these different things that we'll put into the recipe tonight. But I have to, so what I do is not too indifferent than what you do, Dr. Brooks, and sort of being a steward more so than just an expert on one particular area. It's just being a steward to try to get them from point A to point B, which is getting them cured of cancer.
Dr. Bivins, I want to stay here for a second because, as you said, the three words that you hear the most is, oh my God. Black men and Black communities have so many oh my God moments. Yeah. And this is just another moment compiled on something. Now it's a oh my God with my health. It could be oh my God with food issues. It could be oh my God, ... But this right here is a different oh my God. This is a oh my God, ... What's next? Is this the end of my life? Right. Can you both tell us the emotional stress that you have seen that comes with Black men when it comes to prostate cancer or getting diagnosed? What the oh my God, what after that oh my God, after that initial shock, how do we turn them emotionally for a better outlook?
Well, I think that I'm getting ready to get boosted off here. I'm gonna let Dr. Brooks talk first, if that's okay, because it looks like my computer automatic does a reboot, and I've got 19 seconds, so I'll be right back on.
Yeah, so you get that oh my God, and it's that I've seen I've seen it all. I've seen where the patient has blamed me for the cancer, to the anger, to the almost want to fight me, to the cursing me out, to the hugging and crying. And you just have to, as that steward, I'm gonna call myself that steward, as that shepherd, if you will, I just have to get them from point A to point B. And once I have gotten over it, and I'd rather for them to have that, I'm going to most of the time get that sort of kind of emotional impact, that oh my God moment. I call that the emotional impact moment. And once they get through that and it hits home that they got cancer and it hits home that they can survive, then they're ready. Now they're ready. By the time they come in, but they're going to go through it. And, and that's where the family is important, that you get them over that moment. And it may take a couple of phone calls. It may take a couple of visits. But once they get past that, now they're ready to hear you. Now they're ready. Okay, what do I need to do? Everybody may not be, and again, we don't know how Shannon Sharp's initial reaction was. We know how the video portrays it, but again, I've seen the biggest, strongest men come in crying, and I probably would too. But once you get past that, once you have let that pass, now they're ready to just, okay, what's next? What I need to do? How do I need to prepare? What can I do to help to make this easier? And usually that point is even better when you have family that's there, because again, usually having two sets of ears, or even 4 sets of ears, is typically better. They are able to obtain information better. It hits home better when they're home. They're thinking about it later. It's something somebody else picks up, and family members are able to help them along that journey. So it usually have to get past that oh my God moment. Trying to give them all the information at the moment of oh my God, you're probably not at that point. Nothing is going to get through. And so that's why I have to be able to gently massage that, and then I'm able afterwards to give them real tangible information that we can make a plan.
And you said a couple of pivots that I want to hit on, and we can move on, but this is so important, because the pivot from, oh my God, this is a moment that I'm having between me and my provider, my urologist, my primary care physician. This, oh my God, is personal. But then you hit a pivot that not a lot of people think about. Prostate cancer diagnosis for the Black male or the male is very scary for him. But here's the pivot that you talked about. It's also prostate cancer for the entire family that's around him.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Number one, I think that's a great point. And I always tell patients, what we're going to do, we're going to put this in the context of you I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. Before I even get into the specifics or the details of your cancer, let's just talk about you. Let's talk about, again, most people, first of all, they just want to know they're going to be all right. And, sometimes that's a difficult conversation, because you really got what I have to do is be honest. I got to be honest with them and tell them the truth. However, there is dignity. However, there is hope that I can provide no matter what the situation is. And I got to figure out how to give that honest, truthful message to them in a way that is giving them hope, whatever that may be. And then we can get past that and start working on a plan to get them better. But as long as if they're coming in early and doing all the things that they should have been doing, and as Dr. Shannon Sharp says, you catch it early. And I can give them something besides, hey, you gotta, nobody, most of my Black men doesn't care what percentage is. They want to know what's real life. Am I going to see if I got a 15-year-old daughter, am I going to live long enough to see my grandkids? Am I going to be around, am I going to be around to see my daughter get married? Am I going to be around to, all those, see my grandson, not just my son, but my grandson play football. So I try to talk to them in a language that they really can understand. That will provide that thing I talked about earlier, which is hope.
This is exciting, Mr. Starling. Welcome back, and thank you so much. So this is an exciting conversation. Mr. Starling and Dr. Bivins, we're the panelists, and I'm the moderator, but we have 118 attendees that are attending, which we're going to call our great audience on today. We also have questions and answers that's coming through in our chat room. But here's the thing. I want to hear from them. I want to know what are they feeling? as we begin to talk about this much needed discussion on prostate cancer and prostate cancer awareness and the emotions that go along behind it, what does the audience think? And how are they feeling about this? There's one question that did come up that comes to mind, and I want to go to our chat room for a second. I'm going to toggle back and forth as we begin to talk. One question that came from Mrs. Gray, not sure what state she's in, but she says, have you seen an increase in denial in Black men when they receive diagnosis compared to other ethnic groups? And I'm thinking that she's asking, we have, oh my God moments. It's not me, it's you. You did this. But how does it play out with other races? Are we still at the top? Are we still at the top end? Or are we decreasing?
Well, I think that when I first, Dr. Brooks, when I first was told by my urologist that after the test that I had prostate cancer, it was a shock. I had heard other folk, and I hadn't actually been around people that actually have had prostate cancer, or at least they didn't tell me. And it kind of makes you feel as if you're inadequate, you've lost some of your manhood, and even I had the feeling that, you know what, I don't have but a few years left. So it's really, really a social shock from the beginning. As Dr. Bivins has mentioned earlier, normally it was just the urologist just come in when I did a few of my tests and everything was fine. And when they told me I had prostate cancer, it was 2 doctors that came in. And so I knew it was something up, but it's just a shock. Now, what I try to do, what I've been doing is talking to others. I feel like it's better for me to talk about it than to keep it internally like I do with most things. So that's acquired. I prayed about it, did those kind of things. And the Lord gave me the faith to say, it's going to be okay to talk to other folk. And I keep a journal. When I started this journey, which helped me when I was having my treatments, which was radiation treatments. And it helped me and how I felt each day and going through this journey.
That's an excellent outlook. And what you just did was talked about that spiritual outlook. When you talk about saying, I'm going to tell somebody else my story, in the spiritual faith community, we call that testimony, testifying about those things that brought us through those low valleys and allowed us to move to those great mountaintops. And in between, we have those strong testimonies. And so we're going to involve our audience right now. And so audience, you will have a poll question that's going to pop up in front of you really quick. We need you all to participate. You have a certain amount of time to participate. Here's our poll question. What is the number one reason that impacts your comfort in engaging in the healthcare system? And we're going to let it go. And you can use your screen to answer the question. This is going to be interesting to see what it comes back as, because I'm looking at these answers, these possible answers, and all of them seems true. All right. And so I want to make sure everybody has voted. So let's go to the answers. What did the audience say? Well, let's begin to, until the poll comes up, let me go, let's discuss this. I know first and foremost, there is a lack of trust that takes place within our community between healthcare providers, the health system, and African-American communities. Why is that? Dr.
Well,
Bivins, I'll let you go.
Yeah, so if you multifactorial, and really you have to take a historical journey. It's really amazing. If you go to UAB, they got in the OBGYN department of a picture. And on that picture, what you have is you'll have a group of white doctors back in the 1800s that are standing around this young Black woman as they're starting to do OBGYN or GYN procedures. So, as you stem out of slavery, what you end up having was you end up having a lot of the test subjects were slaves, right? And so sort of that, and then that sort of kind of led into the Tuskegee Institute sort of, the syphilis study. And I encourage any one of y'all, that's a very interesting, there's a lot to learn there on ethics and what have you by going to, and looking and read about it. But it's just been, there's that huge distrust of that system. If you look at in the classic sense, when you think of the stereotypical doctor, it's probably a middle-aged white man. And I've had people that look like me when I first started they still ask me, when is the doctor coming in? And so I think that sort of kind of that distrust has just been historical, it's been traditional, it's been passed down. And then when you start to play in prostate cancer, you layer prostate cancer on top of that, and you layer, when you start to look at, as Mr. Starling said earlier, when you start looking at vulnerability, when you start adding in manhood, when you start adding in, and one of the problems with prostate cancer, early treatments 30 years ago, it was pretty, you had the old school radiation and the old school surgery, and they basically did leave you with loss of manhood and leaking urine. So you had these horrible side effects. So because you had these horrible side effects, and you're looking at relatives that, probably didn't get the best care, didn't go to the best doctors in the first place, they had these horrible side effects. It's like, well, that's no way to live. So I won't even go. So you got an underlying historical distrust of the system, and really the African-American place in that historical journey. Then you add in prostate cancer and sort of its historical sense with all of the side effects. Man, it is hard to get men in the door, in particular when you're talking about, I feel normal and I feel okay, and you want me to do what? And you want to do what? That it's hard to get people to buy into that.
Yeah, and as I look at this poll, the poll showed up on my screen, and it's saying that the fear of receiving bad news got 28%. And
okay, I got it.
Yeah, and that was hard on me. I mean, when I had my examination to test for my biopsies, I just knew everything was fine. I just knew it would be okay. But then to have that feeling when, as I said earlier, both doctors walk in, and guess what? Here we got these Gleason scores, and this shows bad, and one shows the other. And what does that mean? It means that I have prostate cancer. And then to receive that news and not know how to respond to the doctor. I didn't have enough education, enough knowledge on prostate cancer to be able to ask certain questions. So you kind of, doctor, what do I do? Somebody help me. You kind of get a helpless feeling. And it's just most people, at least when I go to the doctor, I rely on the doctors, what the doctor tells me. I don't try to read up on a whole lot of things. I know how to take something for a cold, that sort of thing. But when you get bad news like prostate cancer, guess what? AJ didn't read up on it. AJ's no doctor. AJ don't know which direction I should go. Should I go to radiation? Should I go to complete surgery and do all the things that you have options? And it's a scary feeling.
Yeah. So when you talk about this scary feeling of receiving bad news, I want to throw out something that is often talked about in breast cancer awareness that we can now say, and we continue to say with prostate cancer awareness and prostate cancer, early detection is the best detection. Being able to get your results, knowing where you stand early. Yes, the bad news is there, but the good news is we caught it early. The good news is that we can do something about it in the early stages. How important is that, Dr. Bivins?
Well, I want to piggyback. You said something really important that I think as you start to look at genders, right? So when you look at women, I mean, if you look at where we are in the breast cancer journey, I mean, they're just ahead of us. They're ahead of us in that race. But you know, when you look at women, typically women start getting pap smears early. It becomes part of their just healthcare. It becomes part of their maintenance, and you know that women typically are going to engage their health a lot sooner, and it just becomes part of their lifestyle. Men, on the other hand, especially black men, we're prideful. We always have to be seen as not being weak. We can't show any weakness. And so it makes it harder when we're going to the doctors, something's wrong. So we make sure we don't go, make sure everybody know we don't go. I mean, I honestly hear people say, I haven't been to a doctor with pride. I hadn't been to a doctor in 50 years. With pride, they say that. And so as a side note, I always say it's typically 4 things that bring a man into the doctor is when he can't sleep, he's bleeding, he's hurting, he can't sleep, or his manhood's not working. Those are typically 4 things that's going to drive a man into the doctor. But that's sort of kind of getting past that male eating pride, that male, you know, that's something we have to deal with as we try to get people to come in. So again, remember, we want you to come in when you feel normal. That is the sweet spot where we want to screen you. We don't want to wait till you got pain or you got these other issues when it's advanced. We want you, so trying to get that message out. If you're feeling normal, that's when we want to see you. And so sometimes with the male ego and the male pride, and again, that feeling of getting bad news, you know, is you know, women are like, I want to go in so I want to go in early so you don't have to tell me bad news. And men, on the other hand, are saying, I don't want to know because you might tell me bad news.
You know, the important part to this, and as we move towards this and move towards our next area, how important is it, Mr. Starling and Dr. Bivins, for having a relationship with your primary care physician? How important is it for the family to have a primary care physician? How important is it for that relationship to be ongoing and continuous and unique? And a lot of people don't understand that having a good primary care physician helps with you not wanting to receive bad news because there's a relationship being built there. And a lot of women, specifically Black women, they are very serious about a gynecologist and who they choose as a gynecologist. How can we get to that point? And how important is it?
I think that number one, my wife and I, we have the same primary doctor, and it's good to have a relationship with your doctor to be able to talk about a lot of different issues. You know, when I go to the doctor, I don't ask the doctor about my wife, and wife don't ask the doctor about me, but we talk about other things, talk about daily life, we talk about football, we talk about other things, which opens the door for a better relationship when you having these issues. I feel that I'm more comfortable with that. If you don't have a relationship other than just going to the doctor when you feel bad or you done been hurt or something like that, you're not readily open to the doctor. And I found that by having a relationship, I'm not saying my doctor and I go out to eat, that sort of thing, but when I go to the doctor's office, I can talk about the day things, what's going on with the the politics or what's going on with the country and so forth. And then we go into how am I doing? So that helps. It was my doctor, my primary doctor, that was doing the PSA exams that got me to my urologist, which finally got me to my oncologist. So, you know, I had a step that my levels were going up, and he was telling me that you go and check early. And that's, I think, having that relationship with your doctor on a personal level helps a lot.
So real quick, I echo what Mr. Starling is saying, but you make a great point. What that leads into is one of the areas that's really highly talked about, and that's social determinants of health. Two things he said as we talk about social determinants of health. One is married, and we know there's been multiple studies that show that you probably can decrease disparities by 14% just by being married. And he said it, they both going to the doctor. If he don't feel like going, she's probably gonna make him go. Where you live, if everybody around you going to the doctor, then you're probably going to the doctor, as opposed to being in, say, rural Alabama or the Black Belt area where you don't have doctors. But fortunately, where Mr. Starling and I live, we got doctors and we have the opportunity to have those relationships. But then there's places where you just don't even have doctors. And so people, and we can get into, I'm sure we're going to touch on social disparities of health probably a little bit later, but I think that's important because he is right. Everything he said is right. When you have that relationship, they are checking, they are communicating, they are calling you. And so those things do make a difference in finding that cancer early. I mean, if you're looking at Sterling Sharp, I mean, he's in an area where he probably had a primary care doctor that called him and he got checked early. And so, but there are a lot of people that just don't even have access to that. And that's what we got to talk about and see how we can make changes in those
That's
areas.
a very important point. Wealth and health. Wealth and health is one of those barriers. I want to move towards the barriers to our prostate health. I want to go to the next slide. When you talk about barriers to or disparities that impact Black men, when you talk about the barriers that come within communities and culture, and you hit on it. If I live in an impoverished neighborhood, or a neighborhood that don't have access to good supermarkets, access to good hospitals, access to ... That is a barrier that affects us in so many health areas, and it's a disparity. My question to you both is how can we move past some of the disparities, and how do have an adequate a good healthcare system versus not having a good healthcare system challenge us to not want to go to the doctors, because we know that disparities exist. We know that when there's nothing good around, we're going to continue in that behavior. So how important is it for us? And despite being in areas where that hinder you, how does these disparities impact Black men?
Well, I mean, first of all, education. You got to be able to educate people as to the who, what, whens, and why. And it's a whole list of those things that lead to disparities. When you talk about cancer, there's probably 3 legs to that table. One is getting screened early. If you have cancer, you have cancer. Genetically, that's what it is. But if I can find it early, then I can get you cured. It's when we wait till you have symptoms and it's so advanced, then your options, then your results, it's going to be not as good. The second is going to be appropriate treatment. Do I live in Birmingham, Alabama, where we got our world-renowned centers, or do I live in Selma, Alabama, or somewhere where there's not a hospital? I saw this graph recently that showed in the state of Alabama where you had all of these different hospitals in the 90s and how all of those smaller hospitals have all dried up. Where are these people going? If somebody in Selma, Alabama has to pay gas prices to come to Birmingham to get a prostate screen, a PSA, and that gas is going to cost them $100, and they're not having any symptoms, it's not going to happen. So then, so are they getting the treatments? Are they getting the robotics or the best radiation treatment? And then the third are these social determinants of health. And, are you in a place where you got resources, you got, education? Do you know why prostate cancer is important? Do you know why, if we get screened early, I can show you where you'll live and you'll be able to see your grandchildren graduate. So those are all the things that are, and when you wrap them up, it's all still comes back to education, being able to have programs like this that hopefully that somebody on the other end right now that's listening to this will be like, you know what, maybe I need to go get checked. And not only that, but I need to go educate I need to start a group or a forum where I can go educate some other men.
And also, when you talk about education, there's something strong that happens within our culture and our community that I must bring to the table. There's also miseducation that comes to when we talk about Black men, Black culture. When you talk about culture, we have something that is often taught from childhood. So let me dig deep into our culture for a second, if you don't mind. We always say this growing up, and we take it seriously, and it's said, and it's a protective phrase, but it can hurt us in the long run. We've grown up with this phrase: what goes on in this house stays in this house. Don't tell everybody the business of the house. Keep that to yourself. And so that becomes a major philosophy that has bred to so many people not following through with physicals, not following through with healthcare checks, not following through with doctors. Why is that? How can we reverse that disparity? And why is Black men, why are we not getting checked early? And what is that about? And how can we reverse that? I'm sure you've heard that statement before, correct, Mr.
Yeah. I mean, and family members, where's your wife? You sit down talking to me about prostate cancer. Well, I didn't want to worry her, and I'm looking at them like, huh? Did you got prostate cancer? You got 4 brothers, and have you told them they need to go get screened? No, I just hadn't talked to them. And so it's just, again, keeping it close to the hip, because, it's, again, I think to what Mr. Starling said earlier, it's just that, you got to give off this man. I got to be the man, and that image, that bravado and macho image, that it's just so devastating. And a lot of that is just weird culture. That's how we saw our dads. That's how we saw our granddads. And that's how Black men are portrayed on TV. And we're not going to be vulnerable. And me sitting up in somebody's office and somebody's trying, I've seen it happen in so many different ways. If I'm lucky enough to get them to a PSA, if I'm lucky enough to get them back to a discussion, I can't even tell you the number of people that just don't come back. And because, again, they're gonna wish it away. And, cancer doesn't go anywhere. And so, but all of that is that sort of kind of anti-culture, sort of that miseducation and again, it's our goal to re-educate, redirect, refocus people on truth, and so that we can save lives.
And knowing your family. Go ahead, Mr. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I just sort of want to add to that. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm blessed to be around a lot of major hospitals, Meharry, Vanderbilt, and St. Thomas Extension Hospital. And so access for me is pretty easy. Rural Tennessee, as Dr. Bivins has said, is terrible. I mean, you got hospitals closing because of financial reasons and other reasons, and the lack of a whole lot of things. So people don't get tested. Now, I think one of the things that's missing, in my opinion, is it's not talked about in the churches. On Sunday morning, listen, I need all the prayers I can get. I do. When I get through leaving here, I need another prayer. But there ought to be a portion in the service somewhere that says Black men need to go get tested. There needs to be screening at the churches. There needs to be those kind of things that we talk about that as men, as Black men. And we don't do that. We don't do that. We can talk about the football game. We can talk about the basketball game the other night and everything else, and the card games and everything else, but we don't talk about health-related issues. And we're missing that. And guess what? As Dr. Bivins said, if I don't teach my son, if he sees I don't do that, guess what? He's going to do that too. And so consequently, we continuing the legacy of not taking care of our bodies as Black men.
No, one follow-up on that real quick. I've done multiple screenings throughout the state. Our foundation does, and we did do it at a large church once here, and I tried to get screened in some of these screenings, and in particular to be the example, as what Mr. Starling was just alluding to. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying I'm the doctor and I'm going to give screenings. Well, hey, I'm going to get screened too, so you can see me doing it. And I remember a pastor that didn't do it, and I went to him. I said, "Hey, man, you want to come and do this?" And he kind of, at that moment, he became just a regular average person, and he wouldn't get screened because he didn't want to go through the digital rectal exam, and yet we there for his church and his flock. So we just gotta get good leaders, good steward, be good shepherds to help our people, and we got to lead by example.
Yes.
Fathers gotta be able to direct their young men, their children, their football team, and start talking about healthcare early. A lot of times, a lot of us, when I look at other ethnic groups, they have pediatricians. So the segue into adult medicine is a lot easier. So they're getting those PSAs early because they were getting pediatricians when they were in teenagers. So going to the doctor is just part of their normal style. Whereas in a lot of Black men, that hadn't been the case.
And I want to, that is a disparity right there. That is a barrier. And I want to jump in on that just from being a spiritual advisor to many and also a pastor. Spiritual on Sunday mornings, yes, spiritual care is the primary, but a part of spiritual care is healthcare. I tell people all the time, you'll have a low spirit when you're low healthy. Nothing can put your spirits more low than being in a healthy problem or a problem with health. And so, yes, more churches must step up to do that. I want to turn for a second right here. And I saw some come through the chat room that talked about this, and I want to hit on this. We don't know our family history. We don't know those people, what daddy struggled with, what granddad struggled. We know grandma struggled with. We know that diabetes, we know that certain high blood pressure exists, but we don't know how deep it goes. And look at this statistic. There is an up to 68% increased risk of getting prostate cancer if it runs in your family. We don't know. We don't know. We don't, because we don't ask the questions. We would, and this is something that I want to hit. Why are we afraid? Why are we afraid to ask Daddy, what's really wrong? Daddy, do you know about your daddy? And we know that's a deeper issue when it comes to Black men and family. But Mom, what did Grandma pass of? And I know for sure we'll give blanket answers, but deep down inside, we don't know. I want to turn the table for a second because we're talking about some heavy issues when we talk about prostate cancer. How can early screening help the Black community? Let's talk about the early screening. How can getting screened early help our community? That means going to the doctors, getting it early. Dr. Bivins, as a doctor, what are things that we can do to increase our chances as we go early?
So I'm gonna spend a couple of minutes on this. I think this is a very important slide you got up. So what I tell men. So again, what's the why? Why? The why is you can live. Okay. So when you look at what historically, so what is the screening? But what is the what? The what is the screening process, which is you go get a blood test called a PSA, which stands for prostate specific antigen. And it is what that basically is a chemical made by the prostate gland, and it should be in a certain range. And when it goes above that range, basically it's like the alarm going off saying you need to just investigate. That's all it is. What we know historically is that that historically 50 years old has been the screening age. But what we found through our studies is that there are a lot of people who are at higher risk. People with that family history of prostate cancer, African-American men, we know that we can find a lot of cancer in men younger than 50. So depends on where you read or what you study. Some say 45, some say 40. What we, in my group, we use 40 for those high risk. And so we start there. We get a PSA and we do a digital rectal exam. Now, the question is, and so I think this is important, and I tell every man that comes in, don't always, first of all, I ask them, do you know what your PSA is? And then invariably, I would say probably 60% don't. It's okay. At this point, they'll never not know that with me again. And so, but I tell them, you can't expect your primary care doctor to be, you are going to be your best advocate. You're going to be your best person that's going to help and control your health. So if you'll be amazed that if you go in and even ask your primary care doctor, a lot of times they will not have checked you. There's been some studies that suggest that you don't need to check it, that PSA screenings are, you overscreen, and so, and they certainly, no one is eager to do a digital rectal exam. Okay, nobody is dying to do that. The doctor's not dying. So if the doctor's not dying to do it and the patient is not dying to do it, it's a good chance it won't get done. But the reason why that's important, there's up to 18% of the men that have prostate cancer will have normal PSAs, and that may be the only way for us to detect it. That's the why. That's why that's important. So a PSA and a digital rectal exam. Now, the other why is, why do all of this? And then that's the last thing. If you look over to the left, it says up to 96% survival, right? When you look at any other cancer, whether you're talking breast, whether you're talking lung, whether you're talking colon, you always hear a 5-year survival. You always hear a 5-year survival. It's 80%, 5-year survival, 90%. Prostate cancer is the only cancer. They say 96, up in some cases up to 100% of 5-year survival. So typically, we don't even say 5-year survivals when we're talking prostate cancer. We're talking 15-year survival, okay? It's a slow-growing cancer. That's the why. I'm telling you right now, if you go and you get screened early, and we find it early, you got somewhere between 95 to 100% 5-year survival, and likely you probably got well over 90 to 95% 15-year survival. Those are good numbers when you're talking prostate cancer. So that is the why. That is why, and the how is to get screened early, get screened frequently, yearly, and to get your PSA and your digital rectal exam.
Excellent, excellent. This is good stuff right here. My question comes again from early screening. Does eating healthy play a role in this? Does eating bad play a role in it, as well as pre-existing conditions such as high blood pressure? You're on blood thinners, you are on other medications, and you just don't want another medication in your body. How does this give us some encouragement with early detection when it comes to early detection, as well as pre-existing conditions, as well as eating healthy?
We've always tried to find, is there a link between what we eat and outcomes, and as pertaining in this form, prostate cancer. We haven't, there have been multiple studies looking at different things we eat that promotes cancer and things that are protective of cancer. And what we find, we know that there are certain things that you can eat that promote cancer, but nothing for prostate cancer specifically. We know that a lot of red meat, which causes free radicals, a lot of high proteins over time causes what we call free radicals, and those can promote cancer in general, but they don't lead to prostate cancer. However, to your other point, your question, and other risk factors and other medical conditions as they relate to prostate cancer, there is typically no association with that and prostate cancer. However, it is important. So as we sit down and we're talking about treatments, right? At that point, as Mr. Starling said earlier, if you are, the healthier you are, the better your options are, the better I'm now able to give you all the options, which are going to give you a better chance of survival. And so that does play into part of when I start talking through treatment options. But in and of itself, it doesn't really play into the diagnosis of or the actual prognosis of prostate cancer.
Got you.
And,
Go ahead, Mr. Starling.
I'm probably the world's worst person on a diet. I eat a little everything, a lot of fried food. Sorry about that, Doc, but I do. And one thing that I did find out as I was going through this journey is my mother had breast cancer and had a lumpectomy, and my sister had breast cancer 6 weeks after that, which spiraled me into saying my likelihood is that I will probably have some type of cancer. So that started me on my aggressiveness to get my PSA tested, get all that stuff done. And sure enough, 6 months or a year later, I was detected with prostate cancer. But it was that made me more aware of the possibility that I could get that because of the family history. Now, going back to my great-grandmother, nobody talked about what they died of. They just died. They was old and they died. And it could have very well been some of these same things. You just didn't talk about it. And so my diet is probably not the best right now. Even though I've had these treatments and gone through this journey, I still slip and slide. But I'm doing better. I'm drinking more water. I'm trying to exercise, trying to do some of the things. And, now I ask the doctor a whole lot of stuff that I wouldn't ask in the past.
And you're not the only one, Mr. Starling, because when I'm driving down the street, the Popeye sign stand out more than the green salad sign. Okay, and I kind of my wheel kind of turns to the Popeyes a little bit more than the salad side, but we understand. But you hit on something that brings me to the next part: self-advocacy. How do we self-advocate for ourselves? Shannon Sharp says one main point in his video and in his testimony that we watched earlier, we don't think it can happen to us. We are supermen. This could not possibly be our journey. It happened to you, but not happened to me. But you started looking at the history in your family and said, oh, what are some aha moments that can help us self-advocate for ourselves?
Well, listen, the awareness of my mother and my sister having that was the aha moment for me. And it could be different for a lot of other people. It could very well be a relative or a good friend that's detected with prostate cancer or some other type of cancer. And it makes you think about, this could happen. And that's why when I talk about it, and I talk about it a lot, and a lot of people sometimes don't want to always hear it, but I want to tell people it's not the end of the world. It's not that. One of the things that I felt when I first got diagnosed was, I don't want to be close to nobody because I got prostate cancer and I might give it to them. I know that's not medically possible, but you get that think, oh, I don't need to be around there. I got prostate cancer. I don't want them to catch it. I don't want my grandkids. So you get that feeling. And once I got past that and realized that if I don't help somebody else, this is the spiritual part, then I am not doing what the Lord wants me to do. And so it's been really easy for me to advocate and talk about this. I feel good about talking about it right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so you're able to advocate for yourself. And as you advocate for yourself, you help advocate for others. Dr. Bivins, can you touch on that really quick? Because we're going to move into the next poll with our participants. And so before we move there, how can give us some examples of self-advocacy that can.
Well, he did something that was pretty interesting. I want to comment on. So, when he did a poor man's genetic counseling, and that's really cool when you're in a fancy city like Nashville or Birmingham, he got prostate cancer and somebody else has another cancer. You can go, they got all kind of genetic testing that you can do that can kind of map out, what your risk and what's your family risk. And you can start looking at your brothers and your sons. I mean, really, really, as you start to travel down precision medicine, that's a whole nother discussion.
That's right.
But what about rural Alabama, where you don't have all of these ability to have genetic counseling? And I think what you just did was, I think, is important, and that's just a poor man's genetic cancer. Who in my family got these problems? Because I think that if you start recognizing that you have somebody that may have had a, colon cancer here or a breast cancer here, you probably got some genetic dysfunctions that's leading to these cancers. And so in that case, being able, and then, you, Reverend Brooks, just being able to say, hey, if you got cancer in your family, you may want to go get screened. And that's something I think even in these rural areas that don't have a lot of access, these kind of messages, I think, can be put out. Like, if you got multiple cancers in your family, then yeah, maybe you need to go get screening for prostate cancer or colon cancer or breast cancer or what have you. So I think that's an advocacy that we can do within ourselves. That's, to me, I think it's a poor man's genetic testing.
Yes, and I want to touch up on that, and we'll move to this poll really quick. Being able to ask the right questions. Self-advocacy comes with asking all the questions. There's no, you hear it as a child, there's no question that's a dumb question. And every question leads to a good response, regardless of what the response is. We as Black men have to begin to ask all the questions and be honest with ourselves and our doctors and communicate asking those questions. It's okay to ask questions. How will this medication interact with this medication? How would that interact with my mood? How would that interact with me sleeping? I drive for a living. How will it interact with my driving? How would it change my mood? And here's the big question: how would it work with my tools? Because a lot of people are afraid to get on medication because they think that the male tool won't work. And we have to be careful. And we have to ask those questions. And those are viable questions. And those questions do matter because we know that that's a part of who we are. And so I think that self-advocacy comes with being able to ask those right questions. Let's get our participants involved one more time as we move to this poll question. And so we have another poll question that's going to come up. Now that you know some more about prostate cancer, what do you need more to address your prostate health needs? Let's, all the participants, you all can answer these four. And you have a certain amount of time. Let's see what it says. Now, this is going to be an interesting one because they all seem so real. Let's see what the audience come up with. Y'all make sure y'all answer these because I want to know. And as they come up, I haven't gotten it yet, but as they come up, I'm gonna tell you mine. As a faith leader, it's very important for me to be actively involved with the congregation and community's health. And so I'm constantly looking for ways to support the church and families of our church and community with health. And why it's so important. Look at this, here's the answer. And we just talked about this. 54% of y'all said open communication with your doctor. 45% said access to resources to learn how to talk about prostate cancer. And with the Lord's been support from your church and family, that doesn't surprise me because that's another discussion. However, let's talk about that 54%, open communication with your doctor. We want to know more how to address that. Can the visit go beyond 30 minutes and 40 minutes if you have questions? Dr. Bivins, how important is that to have open communication?
Yeah, no, I think it is. And again, if your doctor is going to communicate, well, they should be available to communicate. And really they should drive if they're doing their job appropriately. And again, I get primary care doctors got a lot on their plate when you walk through the door. And if you got blood sugars that are uncontrolled and blood pressure uncontrolled, you may or may not get a conversation about a PSA, and so I think the circumstances, and so some of that is, because again, you're going to be your biggest, support person of yourself, of your own health, and your best ambassador for your own health. And I think that if they're not talking about it, you got to talk about it. And again, nobody's dying to do a prostate exam, so you may not get that, and that's just the reality. And a lot of times they're not even drawing PSAs anymore. And to some degree, it's probably because they figure you're not going to ask and you're not going to check. Mm-hmm. And one of those things that they got to deal with. Now, that'll make them bad. It's just I'm just giving you reality. So therefore, you got to make sure you talk about it. If you're asking for your Viagra, ask for your PSA. I mean, just make them one and the same. Wow. And, but yeah, you got to have that open, and only you can really make sure that you are being taken care of. So we got to break down those barriers there so that you can make sure you're communicating, and don't always trust Mike Bivins. I mean, you just got to trust. Only you can trust you. That's the person you can trust.
That's good. And all of those answers were tricky. They weren't trick questions, but they all led back to wanting to know more information. And if you're not already familiar, Talk That Talk is an initiative made in collaboration with leaders of Black communities. Talk That Talk. And so the mission is simple for Talk That Talk. It helps make a difference in the lives of Black men when it comes to their prostate health. That's what Talk That Talk does. So Dr. Bivins, when we talk about Talk That Talk, what do we find most interesting about Talk That Talk and its resources?
No, I've had the opportunity to work with Talk That Talk on several different projects, and I really have been amazed at the efforts they put in. And I have to, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about one of their supporters. Maybe I can't say the name, and I won't. But I'm really impressed at what they are able to do in the space that they cover prostate cancer, whole prostate cancer space, even though they may only serve with their products a certain line. And they've come to me and say, hey, we want to make sure that we really address, make an impact in the African-American community. And so this is an education process, and I'm all about some education. And so, whether we're doing it on a Saturday night, which I've done with them, or a Tuesday night, just reaching out and being able to reach people where they are, mm-hmm. And being able to provide education. They'll have education materials. I know that they will supply their listeners. And then, even furthermore, there are just a lot of resources. American Cancer Society will have resources that you can go to. You can probably just Google prostate cancer screenings and prostate cancer. You're going to get information. Just having information. And I just encourage, one last thing I'm going to say, that I would encourage you to just take this forum and build on it in your communities. Go back and try to reach, make it a goal. Say, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to reach 5 people, whether in my family, my church. I'm going to reach 5 more people, and then I'm going to challenge them to reach 5 people. And that's how we continue to keep that going, about, getting yourself screened and getting screened early.
Listen, you all, this Talk That Talk is so important for us. It's breaking barriers within disparities, and it's doing so much to educate us. And so I want to get all the participants to get involved right now. I need you all to do something with Talk That Talk. I need you all to pick up your phone and like their Facebook page and their Instagram page. All right. You can scan the barcode or scan the QR code that's to the left of your screen, and it'll come right up. You can follow them on Instagram. Why is it so important? Have this readily available, the statistics. It's very engaging for African-American men and the families. And so I want to take the time. I want everybody to go and pick up their phone or type it in. I know that you all have some Instagram and Facebook, and I want everybody to follow Talk That Talk. In fact, I'm gonna do it right now myself, because I'm gonna do it right now myself. So, because Just, I don't want to be that pastor that you talked about that invite everybody in and I'm not doing it. And so it's easy. And so guess what, you all, this is what I'm doing. Y'all see that? And so I press the follow button. Talk the talk. I'm following y'all. I am following y'all now, and it's gonna pop up on my screen. I'm having an Oprah moment, you know, so I'm following everybody. There you go. I'm following it. And yep, there you go. This is what community looks like. This is what community feels like. Community looks and feels like when everybody's moving in the same direction, because we have the same questions, we have the same answers, we have the same problems that's going on in our communities, and we all have the same questions, and we need powerful answers. And so if everybody has done that, hand clap for you. Who have not done, you can go to Talk That Talk, just how it's said, and go to talkthattalk.com. All the information is there. You can highlight them on your Instagram, highlight them on your Facebook, and this is so important to follow them. So I really, 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 really want everybody to go there and follow them, but don't just follow them, share. This is your time to witness and testify. Tell somebody else about it, have it on your phone. And so you're sitting somewhere, read some of the items that are on there. So when you talk about this, let's go to slide 15, which is our next slide. As we wind down towards this, I want to thank everybody for joining us. But before I do that, I want to go to the question and answer. Let's just take 2 minutes. I want to go back because so many people, we have 18 questions on here and I've been looking at them. And so I want to make sure that I get to something, some of the questions. Is there a study versus the MRI versus biopsy?
I'm trying to figure out what that question is.
The New England study. So first of all, tell everybody what a biopsy is. Tell her what we can.
So I think I understand what the question is. So the question is really, how do you diagnose prostate cancer? And so let me get out of this. So traditionally, historically, it's been a biopsy. That's when you take a little probe about the size of my finger, push it up the rectum, numb it up, and you look around on the ultrasound, and you biopsy, you obtain tissue, and that's called biopsy. And the pathologists look at it, and then they'll tell you what cancer is present or not. And then they'll tell you how aggressive it is. It's what Mr. Starling was saying earlier when he was talking about the Gleason score. MRIs are, we started to use MRI technology to screen and to rescreen, and in some instances to take an MRI to actually biopsy. You still got to have tissue in order to diagnose. But MRIs have taken on a bigger portion of the screening process. Typically, if you're going to have bad cancers, you're going to see those on MRI. So it may, in some space, it may prevent you from having to have that biopsy, because the biopsy does come with some small risk of infection. So, and then there are other tests that are out there, genetic tests that kind of help us to define whether cancer is present or not, which may be in the bloodstream or may be in the urine test. And it kind of helps us to determine who should we still biopsy. So it's becoming, and it's allowing us to be more precise in who we need to biopsy, basically. So those are the tests that are out there. And then that continue. Eventually it's going to be genetically, we can kind of tell who's going to have cancer, who's not. And those are the ones we're going to need to biopsy. So we haven't gotten there yet, but we're getting there.
Let's educate ourselves real quick. What's the difference between radiation and chemo?
So radiation is where you use radiation so it's a beam that comes down or it can come in different forms. You can get it in a beam, you lay on the table, there's an invisible beam that comes down and radiates prostate cancer. You can't see it, can't smell it, can't feel it. You just know you're getting it because you're on the table. There are also some little pellet seeds that you can be placed inside the prostate gland, and they are filled with radiation. And so what happens is radiation just kills cancer over time. Chemotherapy is where you're using chemicals to kill cancer. And and so the problem with chemotherapy is that you are you're killing normal cells and cancer cells, but hopefully you're killing the cancer cells faster than you're killing normal cells. And that's why people have all the side effects, losing weight, nausea, vomiting, or what have you. And then there's other therapies like immunotherapy, where you're using your own immune system to kill cancer. There's cryotherapy where you're freezing the prostate. There's ultrasound therapy where you're killing them. So there's a lot of therapies out there now. And that space it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger with treatment options. It's not only surgery, but it's just expanding.
Good. Last question real quick. How can we find best Black urologists statewide? Is there a website? How do we
Right
go?
Here. Right here. You got them right here.
There you go. There you go. Best state urologist right here. When you talk about everything, I want to thank everybody for joining us. But I want to open this discussion up for some questions and answers really quick. We'll take like 3 minutes here. I know our time is going over, but this is so rich. It's so needed. It's so much need to be talked about. I want to ask the panel, all of those attendees, if you have any last minute questions, and we have a poll question number 3. Following webinar, what action would you take for yourself and or your community? All right, now we have talked about all of this. Let's talk here. Let's see what they say. So I need everybody to participate. What will you do? What action would you take? I'm gonna tell you mine. I'm going to tell everybody about Talk That Talk. I'm going to blast it out to all my friends. We need to put it in our frat groups. I think all our frat brothers should know this as well, to follow Talk That Talk. This is very important. Very, 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 very important. I saw some more questions come in. All right, let's see. What did they say? All right, everybody get their answers in. What's going to be your next steps? Hopefully it's all of the above, right? Have a few more seconds before they populate. All right, here we go. 60, 70, all of the above. Look at that. 77% said all of the above. With 19% urge our fellow brothers and loved ones to get screened for prostate cancer. Yes, and I'm going to share Talk That Talk. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out and participating on this evening. I want to thank Mr. Starling and Dr. Bivins for giving so much testimony and insight. Dr. Bivins, you are a star in this area, and you've helped so many people come to believing in themselves after prostate cancer diagnosis, and also families. And you see it on a daily basis. You witnessed it over the years, and you know the importance of this. Mr. Starling, I want to thank you so much for your testimony and sharing how the journey of prostate cancer awareness and prostate cancer has affected you, your household, and how did you make that swing and turn around. As men of God, we have to remember that our body is our temple. And as pillars within the Black community, we have to put more importance on our health, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And take it from me, as I get a little older, I am more closer to my health now than more than ever. I may look young, but guess what, Dr. Bivins, next year, I'm 45. I will be in that chair, that table, and every month after it, because I'm one of those people. If something show up on me, I'm at my doctor's office. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Balm and Gilead. I want to thank the Jensen Foundation. I want to thank everybody who put this together. So everybody give a round of applause and say thank you. And to all of our participants, thank you for staying with us, and thank you for being actively involved tonight. Each, every last one, you have a blessed night and have a great day. Dr. Seal.
Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Here I am. I have truly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. We're going to do it again. Dr. Nathaniel Brooks, you did a phenomenal job, and so did all of our panels. But we are excited that Dr. Brooks is going to be doing another panel on this conversation on June 27th. So mark your calendar. When you see the link comes out to register and just be with us. This is a first of 3 parts. So please stay with this panel. Thank you so much. God bless you. Please, please, please. And don't forget, it's Holy Week. Happy Easter. Thank you so much now. God bless you. And don't forget now, there is indeed a bomb in Gilead. Good night.
Good night.
Right.